What's going on, everybody? Top 50 Pokemon here. Today I am 5 times the man because we will be reviewing the top 50 most expensive illustration rare Pokemon cards in this current market. In case you haven't been keeping up with the market, illustration rares have been going to the moon. Special illustration rares are yesterday's news. Now it's all about illustration rares. I scoured through thousands upon thousands of auction sales for these cards, so I hope you appreciate today's video. Before I get started on this top 50 list, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor. It is KantoShark.com, the ultimate Pokemon card marketplace. KantoShark.com currently has an excellent variety of both vintage and modern graded Pokemon cards for sale, along with an insane selection of high-end sealed booster boxes and booster box cases. Their inventory ranges from very much affordable to pieces that can only be considered holy grails. They have super fast shipping and payment plans available as well. So after this video, head over to KantoShark.com, check out what they have. A link to their website will be in the description of this video. I appreciate your support. Alright folks, I don't think I've ever done a top 50 video before. I like to keep my videos short and sweet, so we're going to fire through these sales. We're going to have a little bit of input on a card here and there, but for the most part, we're going to rapid fire through this video. Let's start off with the number 50 most expensive illustration rare. And like I said, this is only illustration rares. No special illustration rares or promo cards are included in this list, but the number 50 most expensive IR would have to be this Lickitung illustration rare, sold most recently in auction for $115.50. Coming in number 49 is this Feebas illustration rare from Surging Sparks, which sold for $127.50. Number 48 is this Psyduck from the 151 set, sold as a PSA 10 for $130.50. Number 47 would have to be this Dragonair illustration rare, also from 151, which sold for $145. Number 46 would have to be this Minun illustration rare, which sold for $148.05. Number 45 is this Infernape IR, which sold for $154.50. This is a card from Twilight Masquerade. Number 44 is this Mantikey illustration rare from Surging Sparks that sold for $157. Number 43 is this Ivysaur IR from 151 that sold for $159. You gotta feel bad for the middle children in these evolutionary lineups. They always perform the worst. Number 42 would have to be this PSA 10 Plusle that sold for $160.02. Number 41 is this illustration rare Chansey that sold for $165, and this card was selling for like $30-some as a PSA 10 not that long ago. Number 40 here is another middle child. It's this Wartortle illustration rare from the 151 set that sold most recently for $170. Number 39 is a card from Shrouded Fable in this Duskull IR that sold for $173.30. Number 38 is this Zorua IR that sold for $174.50. Number 37 is this Pikachu illustration rare from the 151 set that sold for $175.50. Number 36 is this Steelix from Paradox Rift that sold for $182.50. Number 35 is this Bulbasaur from Stellar Crown that sold most recently for $187.50. Number 34 is the Charmeleon illustration rare from 151 that sold for $189.50. Number 33 is this Poliwhirl from 151 that sold for $192.50. Number 32 is this Latios from Surging Sparks that sold most recently for $197.50. Number 31 is this Houndoom illustration rare from Shrouded Fable. We're getting a lot of Shrouded Fable on this list today. This card sold for $198.50. Number 30 is yet another card from 151. It's this Bulbasaur IR that sold for an even $200. For number 29, we have this Metagross from Temporal Forces that sold for $202.50. Number 28 is the Scizor illustration rare from Obsidian Flames that sold for $216. Number 27 is the Cerulege illustration rare from Surging Sparks that sold for $220. Number 26 is this Dolive. I think this is from Scarlet and Violet Base that sold for $224.01. Arriving at the halfway point, we have this Mismagius illustration rare from Paldea Evolved that sold for $227.50. Number 24 is this Riolu illustration rare. I think this is also from Scarlet and Violet base that sold for $232.50. Number 23 is an illustration rare Skarmory that sold for $237.50. The number 22 most expensive IR is this Charmander from 151 that sold most recently for $238. Number 21 is this Squirtle from 151. It might be my favorite card from the 151 set, and it sold most recently for $239.50. The number 20 most expensive illustration rare is this Fuecoco from Paldea Evolved that sold for $254. The number 19 most expensive is this Squirtle from Stellar Crown, sold for $275. Number 18 is this Boxcalibur from Paldea Evolved that sold for $282. The number 17 most expensive is this Eevee illustration rare from Twilight Masquerade that sold for $283. The number 16 is this Persian from Shrouded Fable that sold for $299. This is another one of those cards that jumped up like crazy in value in just a month. The number 15 most expensive is this Pachirisu. Oh man, I might have butchered that name, but it sold for $312. The number 14 is this Ralts IR in PSA 10 that sold for $317. This card had a couple of sales, pretty close to $317. The number 13 is this Cresselia from Shrouded Fable. Boy, a lot of Shrouded Fable on this list. I am kind of shocked at just how many Shrouded Fable cards are here. This card sold for $325. The number 12 most expensive is this Ninetales from Obsidian Flames. An absolutely beautiful card. I actually graded several of these and could not get a 10. Very bummed out about that, but this card sold in auction most recently for $345. The number 11 most expensive is this amazing Ghastly IR from Temporal Forces that sold most recently for $355. Getting down to the final 10, here we have this PSA 10 Armorage that sold for $365. In ninth place, we have this Brute Bonnet from Paradox Rift that sold for $374. Number 8 is this Meryl in PSA 10 from Paldea Evolved that sold for $388. Number 7 is this Tyranitar from Paldea Evolved that sold for $405 just this past week. Number 6 is this Groudon from Paradox Rift that sold for $415. Number 5 here is this Raichu that sold very recently as a PSA 10 for $440. The number 4 most expensive illustration rare is this Paldean Wooper that sold as a PSA 10 for $530. You heard that right, folks. This is a card from Paldea Evolved that is over $500. Speaking of crazy, the number 3 most expensive card on today's list is this Slowpoke in PSA 10 that sold for $640. You heard that right. And the number 2 most expensive illustration rare is that Drowsy from Scarlet and Violet base set that sold for $840. 50 cards on today's list, but I still got a couple of honorable mentions for you. Here they are. We have a Mr. Mime illustration rare from the 151 set that sold for $74 as a PSA 10. Here's a Dusk Noir from Shrouded Fable that sold for $80. Here is Caterpie from 151 that sold for $88. Here we have a Tangela that sold for $96. Here is a beautiful Zeraora card from Stellar Crown. I love this card. I love the design of it. Sold for an even $100. Here we have a Cast Form, Sunny Form in PSA 10 that sold for $107. Here is an Arbok illustration rare from Temporal Forces that sold for $115. And lastly, we have this Execute from Surging Sparks that sold for $115 as well. Which brings me to the number 1 undisputed champion of the illustration rares. It is this Magikarp from Paldea Evolved that week after week has been hitting new record prices, most recently selling for $1,450. Folks, what do you think of this illustration rare craze? I don't quite understand it myself, but boy oh boy, these cards are selling for some big bucks. Let me know what you thought of this list in the comments below. Thank you for bearing with me. If you lasted this long, I really appreciate it. That's all I got for you today. I'll catch you all in my next one.